Hi, glad to see you on. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm just about to get started on my intuitive talk, and I've talked a lot about automatic writing, and one of my practices as a writer is to automatic write. And so I've started pretty much automatic writing the first drafts at least of these intuitive talks, and then I go back and add and stuff like that, and so they just come out the way that they do. And so we're just gonna see what happens. Today, guys, we are talking about the New Thought movement and Black leadership, and asking the question, who is Sarah Flowers, the elusive author of the Metaphysical, Thesaurus, and Dictionary? So to get into this topic, I wanted to go back and give y'all an introduction into how I came to New Thought ideology. And it really was a beautiful way because it came through a series of divinely timed situations and experiences. And it actually started with my grandmother and my grandfather. They were both Episcopalians, and my grandfather was an Episcopalian priest who baptized me as a baby. We had this incredible, powerful bond for a very short while. I called him Fran Daddy. He crossed over when I was 4, and honestly, I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about him until probably about 40 years later when my grandmother passed over and I was given my Fran Daddy's Bible. And so, as a side note, I was raised Unitarian, and the Bible had only been mentioned in my household as kind of a threat, as in, I'm sending you to Bible camp, summer Bible camp, if you don't straighten up. And there was also a time, guys, in my own personal spiritual development where I despised all parts of Christianity. I agreed that it was indeed the opium of the masses, nothing more than a violent propaganda tool, and I referred to followers as crispy Christians. Like, I'm not really sure why I decided that that was the way that I was gonna insult them, but, like, even when I sent my daughter to Catholic school, I still referred to Christians as those crispy Christians. I mean, it does have a bit of a good ring, but whatever. So anyways, I was given my grandfather's Bible, and I had a long history of looking at this book kind of as the enemy, but I was also in the middle of what I now refer to as the accelerated portion of my spiritual awakening. And guys, we're talking, I went from zero to giants and fairies and interdimensionals. Oh my. And I was already familiar with the idea of Christ consciousness and Christ as an ascended master. And, the idea of Christ consciousness as unconditional love. Like, I can get around all of that, right? And so I believe that the expansive openness of the energies that I was experiencing during this time, it made it possible for my logical mind to open up past my preconceived notions and cultural conditioning long enough to begin reading and discovering the Bible. And guys, I was in my late 40s, and I probably didn't read it in a traditional way, though it became my traditional way of, interacting with what I now believe is a divinely inspired tool for spiritual awakening. So I began reading the Bible by setting my intention on a topic and then opening the book and reading the first passage that my eyes fell on. So every time I did this, the passage, guys, I mean, it was exactly what I needed to read every time. And I began to feel the energy of God, Great Spirit, and my grandfather coming through as I read. This was probably one of the most profoundly important healing experiences in my spiritual development. I believe that my interaction with the Bible helped to heal my core father wound, because I learned during this time that even if my earthly father, and in my case, fathers, because I'm adopted, had done me wrong, that our Father has never, ever forsaken me. So, back to the Bible. I had no background in interpreting the passages that I was reading. So I started typing the passage, whatever passage I would open the book to, and then metaphysical meaning into Google. And this is how I found Unity Church. It is amazing, guys, that, there's a lot of crazy rabbit holes that you can go down in Google, but there's also some really cool spiritual positive rabbit holes. So I went down the metaphysical dictionary rabbit hole, and it led me on this journey of inner knowing and a connection to divine God, Great Spirit, like I've never experienced before. And guys, I've had some pretty wackadoodle supernatural experiences in my life, but it was just like God was right there with me. And it was the precise roadmap that I needed as I was walking through and eventually out of, my own metaphysical valley of the shadow of death. So during this period, I had already been reading and learning about Neville Goddard. He is a New Thought teacher from Barbados, and I had, been introduced to other teachers such as Dr. Catherine Ponder and Florence Scovel Shinn. And I am such an advocate for all of their beautiful perspectives. But for me, it wasn't until I began reading the Bible and using the metaphysical dictionary together that my long, outdated armor, the patterns that were forged by early childhood trauma and a myriad of other negative oriented experiences, it all began to shift and then fly off, guys, as my awareness expanded and life began showing me experiences that honestly I didn't even know were possible. It's just been such a beautiful unfolding. So fast forward, I moved to Buffalo and I decided to seek out my first Unity church. And when I walked in, Cat Stevens, the song that my parents were married to, was playing. And I knew in that moment as I began crying that I was home, that I had found a place where I could begin to develop my spirituality in new ways. And so, guys, I've been really enjoying the process of learning more about what Unity Church has to offer. And I recently volunteered for the Unity's Juneteenth table, and it's just a table that they had set up with different brochures and stuff on it. And this is where I was introduced to the booklet Gems of Wisdom about Black leaders in the New Thought movement. And I must say, guys, that when I'm being introduced to a new organization, and especially one that was created during our country's horrid history of segregation, that I have a hard time getting behind philosophies of organizations in general that were, developed during this time. But through reading more and more about the New Thought movement in conjunction with Unity, I have come to realize that Unity Church has fostered some pretty incredible Black leaders, including the elusive Sarah Flowers, who was the author of the Metaphysical Thesaurus and Dictionary, published in 1946. And so this is where I believe, like, the synchronicity, everything just came together, guys. So this dictionary that I've been using to look up Bible verses and via spiritual Google for like the last 4 or 5 years, I've been using to look up verses in my Daddy's Bible in a very probably non-crispy Christian way. This Bible, this metaphysical dictionary was written in 1946 by a Black woman who kind of looks like me and who embodied the true spirit of living in Christ consciousness nearly 100 years before. So this is usually when I say, you guys, I cannot make this shit up. Because I knew as soon as I saw her face, that God, Great Spirit, and my Daddy's Bible had led me through a series of just beautifully, divinely timed events straight to the mysterious Sarah Flowers. So, guys, before I talk a little bit about Sarah Flowers, I want to just talk a little bit about the New Thought movement. And y'all know I'm a researcher. And let me tell you, there's a lot of information out there about the New Thought movement. And I find a lot of my information from the magazine Medium. It's a wonderful platform. So this is from Medium. And so basically there's two main branches within the whole New Thought movement. So there's the religious science of mind and spirit, and then there's the Unity Church of Christ. And so Unity is a more Christian friendly religious science. That's just based on what I've been reading. And again, I'm new to the party when it comes to Unity Church, but I'm really enjoying my journey so far. Okay, and so the three main principles of New Thought. God is spirit. Okay, so it's not like a literal person. And this is a knowing that I kind of came to on my own. And the idea of father and mother for me, and this is also where I come into alignment with the ideas of unity, is that I look at father as our father in the sky and our mother the earth, right? And this is all about unconditional love. So very much in alignment. And two, inner divinity, that we all have the inner spark of God, Great Spirit, Christ consciousness in us. We are God incarnate in this physical form. And that was another knowing that I came to on my own. And then when reading about unity, it just aligned perfectly. And then three, and I believe that this is really one of the most important, well, all of them are, but the interconnectiveness of all things, that we are one. And this is also a knowing that I came to on my own at a very young age. I started writing poetry to the one when I was in my single digits. And so when I read about this, about Unity Church, I was like, oh my God, this is like what I've kind of been doing on my own already. So, and always wanting to find community, guys, because, I am a little unique snowflake like all of you guys, and I'm trying to find my tribe, man. And so, unity has really helped me do that. And so that's, and then the whole thing between New Thought versus New Age, they're very similar. New Thought is kind of more focused in on this metaphysical interpretation of the Bible, whereas New Age is a more loose term, right? That really embodies all aspects of, the spiritual movement, the spiritual journey. And because all paths lead to the one. right? And so if you're over in, China or Vietnam or Indonesia or in India, those paths are going to look different than someone that's living in freaking Minnesota, you know what I mean? But all paths still lead to the one. And so New Age, I think, is just a wider term, right? And so that's a little bit about the New Thought movement overall. So let's get back into Sarah Flowers. So, guys, again, I just started learning about the Black leadership within the New Thought movement. And, there is a long history. It makes sense. A couple of other leaders that really came up over and over and over again as I was doing my research was one who is Johnny Coleman is one. Okay, and that is and again, I mean, do your own research on this. But I do know that Johnny Coleman, I believe, is the reverend who she eventually took an offshoot from Unity because of issues during segregation and founded her own Unity kind of inspired church. But anyways, back to Sarah Flowers. So this is what I found about Sarah Flowers. And guys, I'm a trained researcher. She is elusive. I would love if anyone knows any more information about Sarah Flowers, please, drop me a comment, send me an email. I know that after this, I definitely am getting her book. Her book is, her first book was called Common Sense. She graduated from the major course of the Institute of Religious Science in 1937. Her first book, Common Sense, was published in 1941. And it was a practical guide for applying spiritual principles in everyday circumstances. And so each lesson highlighted a spiritual principle, a metaphysical instruction, an affirmation, and a Bible scripture. Sarah Flowers also hosted a radio program. She was a popular lecturer during her time, and she published at least 5 additional books, including the Metaphysical Thesaurus and Dictionary. And so the information that I have from this booklet was actually written by Tracy Brown. And so she talks about how shocked and comforted she was when reading Atomic Metaphysics. And so this was another book that was published in 1947 because she's describing what we now call quantum physics. And we're talking in the 1940s, guys. And so she also explained the metaphysical proof, and this is before science explained it, that humanity is an expression of atomic power. And this way, Sarah Flowers built bridges among science, metaphysics, and the Bible. And so here is a quote by Sarah Flowers. In metaphysics, we must then recognize that there is a power that revolves in and around, out and beyond us at a rate equal to the atomic energy in our material beings, she wrote. This is no more a hidden subject. It is a clearly divulged in every man, woman, and child who is interested sufficiently in becoming informed. Let us elucidate this power, which is revolving in space as light. This light, as we understand it, is electronic. And because we possess it, we can use it for the benefit of all. And then her most famous quote, "We are made of light and power." Thank you, Sarah Flowers, for your contributions. And guys, as I was preparing for this talk today, a lot of energies came in, and one of them about the history of unity, and knowing that a lot of organizations during segregation adhered to the status quo, including Unity Organization, up to a point. I went back and read about the founders and the woman who, let me see if I can remember her name, the Fillmores. The man was actually born on a Native American reservation, and then the woman, Myrtle Fillmore, her father was actually an active abolitionist during the 19th century. And so, what does all of this mean? The fact that I can't find a lot of information about Sarah Flowers, who seemed very prolific during her time, right? That I, go back to read about the early years of this new beautiful organization that I, divinely have stumbled across. And, I'm reading about how they are now trying to right some of their wrongs and some of their admitted wrongs. And I think about, where we're at collectively as we are rising, right? That a lot of the energies that need to be healed are coming to the surface, right? Now, on the negative, man, this can look like a Lance Boyle. That shit is freaking spewing all kinds of funky funk out into the atmosphere, right? But from a positive perspective, and remember, our reading, our Ascended Master today is all about seeing the other person's point of view. So, from a positive perspective, all of this stuff is coming up to be healed. The energies of the past want us to move into this homostasis state of oneness and unity, right? And so I know that the energies of our foremothers and our forefathers, of the New Thought movements, right, also want this energy to be healed. And so perhaps, that is why I have stumbled upon Sarah Flowers and Unity's commitment to righting the wrongs of their collective history, because we are all collectively righting the wrongs, right? And we got a lot of funky shit to look at, man, and to deal with, and I don't think that, a better person than me, honestly, anyone that is right in the middle of this divide, I have a white mother and a black father. I'm right in the middle, right? And so it gives me a unique perspective to try to reconcile how a organization that is based on the oneness of all people still hold up the status quo during, a horrible horrible stain, I believe. I guess everything is needed, in the evolution of our collective consciousness. But my God, I am so thankful that this finite figure did not have to walk through segregation and just the horrible psychological damage that it did to both sides of that divide. And so, I'm going to end my intuitive talk today just saying that Sarah Flowers, thank you for leading me to you. Your voice and your contribution will not be forgotten. And I believe that I am here as a voice in the middle of this crazy divide, just to remind everyone we are one. Black, white, purple, all the in-betweens. We are one. And I am so thankful for the opportunity as we move forward and collectively evolve to be a part of the bringing together of things. Hey,